Okay, so good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the information session for the Toronto Tenant Grants Administration Call for Applications. My name is Gurjeet Birdie. My pronouns are she and her. I am a housing consultant with the Housing Secretariat and one of the many project team members supporting this call. Super excited to be here with you today to discuss the funding opportunity. I will be one of many presenters you will be hearing from today, but before we proceed to introducing our agenda and our panelists, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Patricia Narayan to lead us in today's land acknowledgement.
Thank you, Gurjeet. As Gurjeet noted, my name is Patricia Narayan, and I'm a housing consultant on our Housing Stability Services team supporting the call. We acknowledge the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit.
Thanks, Trish. I'm going to turn it over to our Housing Stability Services Grants Manager, Don Nichols, to introduce himself and to also say a few welcome words as well. Don?
Thanks so much, Gurjeet. My name's Don Nichols. I'm the manager of the grants program in the Housing Secretariat. My pronouns are he, him. Wanted to start by welcoming everyone, all of the attendees and all the panelists today. These are really exciting times. I would say that this is probably my 8th information session in quite a short amount of time, with lots of new funding opportunities to deliver supports and services that are incredibly important to the residents of Toronto. I'm really excited to have everyone with us this afternoon. Wanted to mention that this call for applications is a unique one in the sense that we're looking for organizations that have the experience and expertise to conduct the administrative functions of some of the Housing Secretariat's grant programs. I'd like to also take an opportunity to have the panelists also introduce themselves. So maybe if they could go off mute, and I'll just go one by one. Gurjeet, you already introduced yourself, and Trish, but I'll turn it to Atul.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Atul Medhekar. I'm the manager of IT with Shelter Support and Housing Secretariat. And my name is pronounced as he, him. Thank you.
Thanks, Atul. Next, I have Dawn Hibbard.
Hi, everybody. My name is Dawn Hibbard. My pronouns are she and her. I'm a housing benefits consultant with the Housing Secretariat on the Housing Benefits and Support team.
Great. Next, I have Leslie Jardine.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Leslie Jardine, and I manage the EPIC program, Eviction Prevention in the Community, and looking forward to answering any questions that you might have near the end.
Thanks, Leslie. I also have Maria Varlacostas.
Good afternoon, all. My pronouns are she, her. I'm the manager of Housing Benefits and Support, and Dawn, who will be presenting, is on my team, and my team oversees a number of housing benefits, and here as well to support any questions that the panelists may have.
Thanks, Maria. And I also have Ruth Antuiwa.
Thank you, Don. Hi, all. My name is Ruth Inchua, pronoun she, her, Agency Review Officer with Housing Secretariat Grants Team. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm now going to actually turn it back over to Gurjeet.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Don. So just to go over some quick housekeeping items before we get started, I'm going to remind all the panelists to please keep their mics on mute unless you're speaking, just to avoid any background noise that we might have. As mentioned, this presentation is being recorded and will be posted on the Housing and Homelessness Grants webpage, and the link to the webpage, I just popped it in the chat right there, and you can find the current funding opportunity or the call for applications, as well as future opportunities as well. If you'd like to sort of bookmark that in on your tab, feel free to do so. And throughout the presentation, if you do have any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat. We will have a dedicated Q&A period at the end of the presentations and come back to some of the questions that may have popped out throughout while we were speaking. Patricia will be monitoring the chat for questions and answers, and anything that will require sort of more sort of a response, we'll come back to it at the end. After the presentation, if you are interested in receiving an application package, if you haven't already done so, you will need to submit an email request, and we'll get into a bit more detail about that later on in the presentation, but just some preliminary information as well to keep in mind. So here's our agenda for this afternoon. I'm going to turn it over to Dawn, who will be leading us in today's African Ancestral Acknowledgement. We will go through the general overview and purpose for the call, who is eligible to apply, some of the mandatory eligibility requirements. We'll go through the funding categories and the scope of work. We'll also go through our selection process and evaluation criteria that we will be conducting. Some key things around the application package document and submission details to keep in mind. We'll go through some key dates and timelines that are upcoming in the next couple months. And then, like I said, we'll open it up for questions and answers. So Dawn, if you wouldn't mind leading us in today's African Ancestral Acknowledgement.
Thank you, Gurjeet. The City of Toronto acknowledges all treaty peoples, including those who came here as settlers, as migrants, either in this generation or in generations past, and those of us who came here involuntarily, particularly those brought to these lands as a result of the transatlantic slave trade and slavery. We pay tribute to those ancestors of African origin and descent. And back to you, Gurjeet.
Thanks, Dawn. I'm now going to turn it over to Dawn Nichols to provide us with a general overview and purpose for the call.
Great, thanks, Gurjeet. So I'll just provide you with a purpose of this call for applications for the Toronto Tenants Grants Administration call. So the purpose of this call is to select organization or organizations to implement and execute an administrative function service delivery model to deliver on 5 key programs, grant programs for the City of Toronto Housing Secretariat. And they are the Rent Bank Program, the Emergency Energy Fund, the Bridging Grant, the Enhanced Bridging Grant Benefit, and also the Eviction Prevention in the Community Fund as well. The services provided through this call for applications will ensure housing access and stabilization solutions, and will provide the necessary financial supports for residents to secure and maintain sustainable, permanent, and affordable housing. The services provided through this call for applications This includes a strong, robust administrative infrastructure in terms of service delivery model with the appropriate technology systems as well. So next, I'm just going to take us through the expected outcomes. So the expectation is to be able to respond to the service needs of Toronto residents is really important in this call. And it's important that the successful organization need to understand and be responsive and flexible as the Toronto landscape changes. We're also looking to collaborate with the successful organization or organizations to further modernize and streamline processes to ensure a more coordinated service approach in delivering grants to eligible recipients. And we want to further look at automating processes and scalability in terms of responding to the service level demands for Toronto residents. And finally, to also look at cost efficiencies to optimize to ensure the maximum amount of grant funding is available and to be provided to clients. So I'm going to turn it back to Gurjeet.
Thanks, Dawn. Moving on to these mandatory eligibility requirements, there is sort of a standard eligibility criteria that your organization must check off in order to be eligible to apply to the funding opportunity. And these are sort of the ones highlighted here. You'll see on the screen. I just want to flag there are maybe additional requirements which will be included in the application guide, but things to keep in mind at the forefront. So we're looking for an organization that is an incorporated not-for-profit organization and you will need to provide and submit recent audit financial statements, and instructions for that will be provided later as well. Your organization must be located in the City of Toronto, and primary activities for the funding opportunity will take place in the City of Toronto. Your organization must be in good standing with the City of Toronto. You must have general liability insurance and coverage. For this specific call, there are insurance requirements that are specifically required for this call. And so when you receive your application package, there are specific insurance requirements that are noted there. So just to turn your attention towards those. And your organization will also need to have WSIB coverage for employees and provide that confirmation as well as the services must be provided in French, either directly or through a partner organization as well. So included in the call for applications are two categories that organizations are invited to apply to. I just want to flag that organizations are welcome to apply for both categories, or depending on the organization's specific mandate, you're also invited to just apply to one if you feel that's a better fit. So the first category is to administer the Rent Bank and the Emergency Energy Fund. And the second is the Bridging Grant and the Eviction Prevention in the Community, or EPIC, as we'll probably refer it to throughout the presentation, the EPIC Fund Payment Administration. So funding can be awarded to only one organization for both of the categories, or we also reserve the right to award one organization to deliver the services under both the categories as well. So something to also keep in mind in terms of what we're looking for. So let's dive into the first category, which is the Rent Bank and the Emergency Energy Fund Program Administration. I'm going to turn it over to Ruth to provide some program background on the Rent Bank and the Emergency Energy Fund, just to provide some context around the supports and services that are offered through these programs.
Thank you, Gurjeet. The Rent Bank program, the Rent Bank grant program, known as RBGP, provides grants to low-income tenants in Toronto who are at imminent risk of losing their homes due to rental arrears or require help with a rental deposit to ensure low-income residents are able to secure housing and avoid homelessness. Regarding Emergency Energy Fund, known as EEF, EEF provides grants to low-income tenants in Toronto who are facing energy-related emergencies to avoid disconnection or to have their energy services reconnected to stabilize their home. To provide you with a little bit of background, I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about some of the program background. The Toronto Rent Bank program was established, as most of you would know, in 1998. The program was first established to provide interest-free loans for low-income households in Toronto who are experiencing rental arrears or require support with rental deposit in order to secure housing or to prevent homelessness. In response to COVID-19 pandemic, the city piloted the program as a grant program to support many Torontonians negatively impacted from the pandemic. In July 2022, City Council permanently adopted the Rent Bank program as a grant program. The grant program supports low-income tenants in Toronto who are at imminent risk of losing their homes due to rental arrears or to provide first and last month's rent deposit for people who are moving to more affordable and stable housing options. The city has seen a steady increase in the number of households accessing the Rent Bank program and expect this demand to continue to increase. In partnership with the City of Toronto Local Access Center and the lead organization overseeing the Rent Bank program, in 2020, the Rent Bank program served 1,150 households. In 2021, the program served 1,717 households. From January to October 2022, we have seen that the program has served 1,922 households. As noted, this funding call is to provide the opportunity for organizations to apply to administer the program with the necessary administrative infrastructure, to to provide end-to-end program administration support. I'm not going to give you a quick background about the Emergency Energy Fund. In 2004, the Ministry of Community and Social Services introduced the Emergency Energy Fund, EEF, to provide low-income Ontarians facing energy-related emergency. EEF is administered by the municipalities, and the grant help low-income Torontonians who are facing energy-related emergencies to avoid disconnection or to have their energy services reconnected in order to stabilize their housing. Housing Secretariat has been managing the program since October 2021. We have also seen an increase in EEF uptake. Just to give you some quick stats, from October 2021 to December 2021, since the program came to us, we served 34 households. However, from January to October 2022, we have served 319 households, specifically looking for support in regards to Emergency Energy Fund. Similar to the Rent Bank Grant Program, the funding opportunity is providing opportunity for organizations to apply to administer the program with necessary administrative infrastructure to provide end-to-end program administration. There are additional policies and criteria for each of the program. Additional onboarding and processes will be provided to the successful organization through this call. I hope that this program information shared with you today help you to understand who is supported through these two programs. I'm now going to turn it over to Gurjeet to walk us through the scope of work. Over to you, Gurjeet.
Thanks so much, Ruth. So there are 9 categories in which the successful organization will need to provide to administer both the Rent Bank Grant Program and the Emergency Energy Fund. And we'll dive in, unpack each of them in a bit more detail, but generally just a quick overview is what's included in the scope of work is the successful organization will need to establish a central intake and application process for residents to submit an application that is public facing and easily accessible. The organization will be leading the program delivery of both the Rent Bank and the Emergency Energy Fund, providing central administration and coordination services in partnership with the city's local access centers. And we'll dive into a bit more detail in the next couple of slides on what that means. Providing responsive services is vital not only to respond to application inquiries, but to also improve access and supports for equity deserving populations and vulnerable populations. So that is also a requirement. A cloud-based technology solution in order to submit and receive applications, to review and assess for program eligibility, and to track grant payment issuances to payees is another component, which we will dive into. The organization will be responsible for preparing and issuing payments for all Rent Bank Grant Program and Emergency Energy Fund applications. Because both of these programs are public facing, it's important to think about a citywide approach in terms of communication and outreach strategies to inform residents about the programs and supports available for the Rent Bank and the Emergency Energy Fund. The successful organization will also be responsible for leading and coordinating the steering committee and the operational committee, in which membership for these groups have already been established, and we will sort of dive into who's a part of that membership right now. Staff training is another one, and managing the grant fund and also completing reporting to the city as well. So if we're going to break up each of the 9 categories that I went into, and I want to highlight here that there are additional points noted in the application package, but I just wanted folks to grasp the concept of what we meant with each of the categories. But please take the time when you receive the guide to go through the scope of work in a lot more detail. But essentially, the successful organization for the central intake and application process will be the first point of contact for Toronto residents to inquire about completing an application for the Rent Bank or the Emergency Energy Fund. So the successful organization will be the lead organization in administering these programs. So currently, this is conducted through a telephone intake process, and so we are expecting the organization to continue, the successful organization to continue the service just to make sure there's no disruption in the current process in terms of service delivery. However, in keeping with the theme of finding efficiencies and modernizing processes, we are looking to work with the organization successful through this call to implement an online application throughout the funding term as another opportunity for residents to apply. We're also asking for the lead organization successful through this call to establish an appeal process, which we will dive into in a little bit more detail, and also to provide multilingual information and assistance to meet the diverse language needs of clients, which range from multilingual service agencies or interpretation services when required as well. The successful organization, like I said through this call, will be leading and overseeing the administration of the Rempbank Grant Program and the Emergency Energy Fund in partnership with the city-funded local access centers. So you'll see on the screen here the current local access centers that the city currently funds. There are 11 in total, so we have 9, and we are working to almost in completion of onboarding an additional 2 with a total of 11 local access centers that the organization successful through this call will be working with. And we recognize the administrative support required to deliver the services of the Rempbank and the Emergency Energy Fund. And so we have increased the number of local access centers and now working with 11 local access centers to administer the program. Once this successful organization is chosen, the city will work with the organization and the local access centers to enter into a memorandum of understanding to solidify the partnership and to further outline the roles and its responsibilities to administer the programs. So to understand just the relationship between the lead organization through the call, the local access centers as well, there's an administrative process that you'll see here, just to sort of have for a visual process map in terms of accessing these the Rempbank and the Emergency Energy Fund. And so the resident will call the lead organization, so the organization successful through this call, the central intake, which will need to be established as we sort of mentioned. The lead organization will triage the call. The lead organization will dispatch inquiries to the local access centers. The local access centers will complete the application to make sure all the required documentation is collected. The local access centers will send the application back to the lead organization. The lead organization will verify all the information and then prepare and issue the payment. So that's sort of the access point and the process map from beginning to end, and the connections between the organization and the local access centers. Want to highlight 2 other items you'll see on the slide, and that there is we're expecting that the lead organization successful through this call will also perform the same role as the local access centers and assess approximately 25 to 30 applications per month. And this is the service level standard for the local access centers as well. From the beginning point to the resident calling the central intake to preparing and issuing a payment, we have set a service level standard of 5 business days as well, something to also keep in mind. So providing responsive services that will improve access and supports for residents, including vulnerable populations and equity deserving groups, is another requirement, and sort of encompasses that is other additional requirements in terms of responsive services. So this is providing services Monday to Friday with the flexibility of providing weekend and evening services, improving access and supports to Toronto residents, including vulnerable populations and equity deserving groups. We are asking for if the organization has any planned changes in terms of, updates to your system or something that may impact the service delivery, just to let the city know, just to give a 30 days notice. If there is ever a data breach or a service outage, to notify the city immediately. We are requesting for the lead organization to participate in all meetings and case conferences process established by the city, to meet with the city monthly, and this is more to discuss monthly expenditures and budget forecasting, participating in committee and working groups, facilitating presentations when requested, entering into new partnerships as the city may identify to support the service delivery model, and accepting referrals from the City of Toronto programs and services that we also offer. So to administer the programs, it requires a robust technology infrastructure, and there are requirements included that the organization system will need to sort of meet in terms of compliance structures and frameworks. And there are technical requirements and then program and system features that are listed on the slide here. The technical requirements, we want to make sure that the system meets the security and privacy requirements for managing the information that's in compliance with provincial legislation, as well as managing records in accordance with provincial legislation, as well as city recorded policies as well. And to not store or transfer confidential information outside of Canada without prior consent from the city. So these are sort of three main ones. There are additional ones that I would highly recommend to review in the scope of work in the guide, but just to ensure that the technical requirements and the system meet the provincial legislation as well as the city's policies as well. And then there are program and system features. We are looking to ensure streamline and efficiencies in keeping with that theme, as well as to improve the partnership between the organization and the city. We are looking to have sort of a reader-only access or a system or secure portal to be able to extract reporting and data, having the ability to see reporting and dashboards as well for aggregate reporting summaries, as well as when the online application is ready to ensure the system is configured to sort of receive those and triage appropriately. The lead organization will be responsible for preparing and issuing all Rent Bank Grant Program and Emergency Energy Fund approved payments. Based on sort of projected forecasting, we are approximating that the successful organization will be processing and preparing approximately 200 to 230 payments per month. And you'll see the breakdown on the slide there. It's really important to note that there may be fluctuations each month in terms of the service delivery demand or because of funding cycle timelines. So we are hoping that to work with the organization to be able to respond to the fluctuating needs, as some months might be different than others as well. In terms of payment administration, so as we've noted before, the successful organization will have 5 business days to prepare and issue payments from the initial intake. And we've identified 3 payment methods that payments can be prepared. One is the electronic funds transfer, and this can be through phone, text, or email. Direct deposits straight to the payee's bank accounts. And then finally, checks, which can be mailed out, picked up from the organization's office location, or couriered, but we are requesting that this only be done in extenuating circumstances. And you'll see there it says flexible pickup times, which sort of loops into that responsive services of being able to sort of accommodate schedules in terms of pickup as well. The lead organization will be promoting and providing information services regarding the Rent Bank and the Emergency Fund using a variety of communication strategies. We're trying to ensure a sort of a standardized approach in terms of program administration, and the organization successful will be responsible for working in partnership with the local access centers to ensure a citywide approach to inform residents of the services and financial supports that can be offered through the programs as well. Developing and maintaining a website is also a requirement, and sort of hoping that can be sort of the base in terms of directing residents to if they have questions. Having a strong understanding of community resources and referral pathways as well, especially when triaging calls and supports. supporting capacity building by providing individuals and households with information to support around system navigation as well, and building and maintaining relationships with housing providers in the community as well. So in terms of program oversight, the successful organization will be leading and coordinating the steering committee and the operational committee in partnership with the city to oversee the administration and the coordination of the Rent Bank program and the Emergency Energy Fund. Like I mentioned, these committees are established, and you'll see sort of some of the roles and responsibilities from the steering committee versus the operational committee. The steering committee will be responsible for developing guiding principles, training and communications, coordination, direction and guidance to administer the programs, managing the appeal process, which was introduced in the central intake portion of the scope of work, conducting ongoing evaluation, and identifying broader systemic issues to bring to the committee's attention as well as the city's as well. On the operational side is more managing the day-to-day operational issues that may come up in terms of administration and to make recommendations to the steering committee on any policy or program development that may be required. So you will see the established committee membership of the steering committee on the slide here, and these are sort of the expectation the organization will be working with to oversee the program administration of both the Rent Bank Grant Program and the Emergency Energy Fund as well. So to ensure consistent approach in training, the organization successful through this call will also be responsible for onboarding and training staff and developing training tools with the goal of streamlining and standardizing training processes through the entire administration of the programs and all partners involved as well. Training can be developed using a variety of strategies, including on-site, virtual as well. So that's also something to keep in mind in terms of staff training. And finally, the organization will be performing all relevant accounting functions related to the management of the grant fund and completing reporting requirements to the Housing Secretariat. And this includes monthly reporting, results reporting, and budget variance reporting. There are specific indicators included in the guide as well, but just to show the sort of frequency in terms of the reporting requirements to the city as well. I'm now going to turn it over to Dawn to discuss the funding term and the available funding for this particular category. Dawn?
Sorry, Gurjeet, I just had to get off mute there. Great, so I'll just go over the agreement term and available funding. So the selected organization will enter into a funding agreement beginning July 1st, 2023 to March 31st of 2026, so just under 3 years. The annual program budget for the Rent Bank Grant Program and the Emergency Energy Fund is approximately $5.3 million. This is subject to council approval through the annual budget process. Organizations can allocate a maximum of 15% of the annual program budget to administer the service delivery requirements. I just want to be sure that people understand that the annual program budget includes the administration component to deliver the services and the grant fund delivered to residents. And the city recognizes the importance of providing the maximum amount of available funding to eligible households and expects organizations to consider administrative efficiencies in administering the Rent Bank Grant Program and the Emergency Energy Fund when they're submitting an application.
Awesome, thanks, Dawn. So that concludes the first category. And now we're going to dive into the second category, which is the bridging grant and the EPIC Fund Payment Administration. In a similar fashion, we're going to go through some program background information, and I'm going to turn it over to Dawn to first tell us a little bit about the bridging grant programs, and then turn it over to Leslie to provide us with a brief description on the EPIC Fund. So Dawn.
Thank you, Gurjeet. The Bridging Grant Benefit supports persons experiencing homelessness, residing in an emergency shelter, or living outside to secure and maintain permanent housing. The Bridging Grant provides grants paid to the landlord on behalf of the applicant to cover first and last month's rent when moving into new rental housing. The Toronto rental market is very competitive, so securing a new address can be extremely challenging for applicants. Having streamlined and timely access to Bridging Grant benefit to pay first and last month's rent is one of the most important aspects of securing a new address and forming a trusting and strong relationship with their new landlord. The Enhanced Bridging Grant benefit is a grant paid directly to an approved client staying in an encampment upon moving into housing. This is to support with the successful attainment of housing, as well as items related to the transition of indoor living. Streets to Homes provides street outreach and housing supports to assist persons who are sleeping outdoors to find and maintain housing. Many individuals staying in encampments have expressed concerns over the loss of items they may need to discard before they can move indoors, stuff like tents. Through the provision of the Enhanced Bridging Grant benefit, Streets to Homes has been very successful at reducing such barriers for people staying in encampments and improving access to permanent and affordable housing. Both of these grant benefits the eligibility is determined by city staff. And now I will turn it over to Leslie to tell us a little bit about the EPIC program. Thank you.
Thanks, Dawn. Everybody, just what's on your screen is pretty straightforward. It is a grant program. It's specific to clients that are registered under the EPIC program, and the money is paid direct to the landlords or third-party organization that is supporting the individual to keep their housing. The access pathway is, again, through the program, the EPIC program. Not all clients that we support actually need the fund, the grant. What we first do is certainly explore all other financial resources that are available. We advocate a pretty well exhaust everything first before we draw from the Eviction Prevention Fund. The eligibility, the expenses that we cover typically are the rent arrears, but other expenses that may support somebody to keep their housing, like hoarding supports as an example. And finally, all the eligibility determination is conducted by the City of Toronto staff. So the role of the lead organization in this funding call would be simply to administer the funds, cut the check, and make sure it gets to the right party. So back to Gurjeet.
Thank you so much, John and Leslie, for the background for all three of the programs. So the scope of work for this category includes four sections. It's to prepare and issue payments that is instructed by city staff, a cloud-based technology system to submit and receive payment requests from the city, to ensure responsive services to respond to inquiries in a timely manner, and to perform all of the relevant accounting functions and related to the management of the grant, as well as completing reporting requirements as well. So in a similar fashion to the other category, this is sort of a visual process map to understand the access point that Leslie sort of already covered, but just in terms of recapping that, in terms of the differences between the first category and this particular category. So as Leslie mentioned, all of the eligibility requirements for clients are conducted by city staff. And then the city staff will submit a request to initiate a payment to the organization successful through this call. Organizations will prepare and distribute payments, and they will provide transactional payment tracking and reporting as well. One thing to note here is that the timeline from the submission for the request to actually issuing the payment is 1 business day. So also something to keep in mind. So the successful organization will prepare and issue grant payments. And based on forecasting, we are expecting the successful organization to process and prepare approximately 125 to 300 payments per month. And this is across the 3 programs as well. So this is a combined total. And similar to the other category, it's important to note that payments also fluctuate in this category as well, depending on service delivery as well as funding cycle timelines. And so the expectation for the organization to be able to respond to fluctuating needs is also important in this category as well. The payment types in terms of processing and issuing payments are the exact same as the other categories. So organizations preparing and issuing payments can do so with electronic funds transfer, direct deposits, or checks. And again, checks can be mailed out, couriered only in extenuating circumstances, or picked up from the organization's office location. And the opportunity to provide flexible pickup times is also sort of an additional requirement, just to be able to respond to the fluctuating schedules of people as well. One thing to note here and in the other category is that cash payments are not an acceptable payment format as well. So to administer this program, it also requires a technology solution. Similarly to the other category, it needs to meet all of the technical requirements in terms of provincial legislation, as well as the city's policies as well. But in terms of the program and system features, what we're requesting for is a secure system for city staff to submit a payment request, a communication process for staff to be able to between the staff and the successful organization within the system. A secured system for viewing the online transaction history as well, the ability to generate reporting and to access the client information, and reporting and dashboards as well to be able to see the aggregate reporting information. The organization will be responsible for improving grant payment processing timelines and responding to inquiries and concerns in a timely manner. So this is services Monday to Friday with the flexibility of providing weekends and evening services as well. Given that there is a process payment time within 1 business day, we are requesting minimum levels of staffing throughout the year to accommodate for those busy peak times. And provide timely and effective responses to questions related to processing payments or technology support to city staff as well. Again, if there are any sort of planned system changes or anything that may impact the service delivery, we're requesting for the organization to notify the city or give us 30 days notice. And if there is a data breach or a service outage, to also notify the city immediately. Similarly, there are reporting requirements that are monthly, and there are results reporting and budget variance reporting included, similar to the other category. And again, there are key outcomes and indicators included in the guide, but just to show you the frequency of the reporting requirement as well. And now I'm going to turn it over to Dawn to walk through the agreement term and the available funding for this particular category.
Thanks, Gurjeet. So similar to the Rent Bank and Emergency Energy Fund, the selected organization will enter into a funding agreement beginning July 1st of 2023 to March 31st of 2026. The annual program budget for the Bridging Grant, the Enhanced Bridging Grant, and the EPIC Fund is approximately $3.7 million. This is also subject to council approval through the annual budget process, and organizations can allocate a maximum of 10% of the annual program budget to administer the service delivery requirements in this category. The annual program budget includes the administrative component to deliver the services and the grant fund delivered to the residents as well. The city recognizes the importance of providing the maximum amount of available funding to eligible households and expects organizations to consider administrative efficiencies in delivering the Bridging Grant, Enhanced Bridging Grant benefit, and also the EPIC Fund.
Thanks, Don. So that covers the two categories included in the call. And now we're going to dive into the evaluation criteria and the selection process. So the selection committee to evaluate the submissions received will be comprised of individuals who bring a range of experience and expertise. The selection committee may have representatives from the Housing Secretariat staff, partners, staff from the Office of the Chief Information Security Officer, also known as CISO, the information technology staff, and the city's privacy team as well. And so it may be a wide spread of panelists that will be reviewing the submissions through this funding call. The structure of the way that we are evaluating, which I will delve into in a bit more detail, is to ensure the projects that we've selected have the outputs and resources that are aligned with the program model and the scope of work outlined. Reviewers will also be considering the organization's ability to respond to emerging needs and urgent priorities, and when required as well. The aim of the selection committee will be to select an organization or organizations, depending on the submissions we receive, that will be best to deliver the scope of work outlined and to evaluate the best overall value to the city. And it's important to know that the budget submitted will be a key component to evaluate, to determine what the best overall value to the city will be. So the selection process has two steps. All applications, when we receive them, will be evaluated by a selection committee. A shortlist will be established, and this may include one organization up to a maximum of 2. And the selection criteria will be a weighted score with the criteria outlined in the slide, which will be evaluated through the organization stability, the project proposal, the project work plan, and the budget as well. After the shortlist is established, it will then move on to step 2. And this will be the sort of organizations we're interested in working with. The system will be reviewed. The organization system, depending on the technical requirements and the system features, will be reviewed by CISO and our privacy team to analyze the system to ensure the organization system is in compliance with provincial legislation, as well as to mitigate any security risks to the system that will hold personal and banking information of eligible clients receiving the grants. As part of our evaluation process, the selection committee may request for further information and respect to the content of any application in order to clarify additional pieces. And if the organization is successful and moves to step 2 to work with for the system to be analyzed by CISO and privacy, those they may also have additional questions as well. Moving to our last section. On how to apply. So if you have not received an application package and you are interested in applying to the call for applications, you will need to submit an application request to hss@toronto.ca, and you will receive an application package. Organizations are invited to apply to both categories that were outlined, or if you're interested in applying to only one, we're requesting to just specify that in your email, just because the application packages are different depending on if you want to apply to both the categories or if you want to just specifically apply to one. So here in your application package, these are generally the documents that you will find. There may be some additional sort of forms that were separated for organizations that are interested in applying to both. So that's why the forms is sort of pluralized, because you may see additional forms included in those packages. But here is sort of the general outline of the documents that you will receive. So the first is a start here, how to complete an application step by step. You will see a TGRIP startup user guide, which I will go into, the application guides, the application forms, the budget form, the security requirements and security controls assessment form, and the submission checklist. I just want to highlight here the start here document, how to complete an application step by step. is the document I would advise organizations to open to at the start, just because it gives a really comprehensive breakdown of the step-by-step instructions on what you will need to do to complete all of the subsequent forms listed here, as well as how to actually submit the application as well. So as I said, the TGRIP Startup User Guide is a PDF document that will be included in the application package. TGRIP stands for the Toronto Grants, Rebates, and Incentives Portal. And this is the City of Toronto's grants management system. And as part of completing your application, we are requesting for organizations to complete an organization profile in TGRIP. Some organizations may already have an existing profile, which is great, and we just ask you to log in and make sure all of the organization information as well as the documents are up to date by the deadline. If this is your organization's first time interacting with the system, there is in the guide, there's a step-by-step process on how to register and how to complete your organization profile as well. Another benefit of using the system is you may also see other sort of opportunities that may pop up through the system. But for the purpose of this call, all you have to do is complete an organization profile in TGRIP, and the remainder of the submission is paper-based with all of those documents that I listed previously. So the application guides includes the scope of work, which directly correlates to the application forms. The guides provide detailed requirements of the organization that the organization will need to conduct. And the application form provides the opportunity to respond in a narrative way on the strategy of how the requirements will be implemented. I want to note the application form does include technical questions related to the system, the organization system. And so there may be a sort of the need to leverage your own IT teams to support the application process. There's a document in Excel format called the TTGA budget form. TTGA is just the acronym of the call, Toronto Tenant Grants Administration. And so the budget form is also included that will need to be completed. And we are requesting for organizations to submit a 12-month budget as well. Understanding that the funding agreement is longer, but just we are requesting for a 12-month budget to be submitted to see the year's work. There are tabs included in the Excel spreadsheet. And just flagging here to ensure that all tabs are completed, and there are instructions in tab 1 that will provide you guidance as well. The security requirements and security controls assessment form. So this form includes technical questions that our IT team and CISO team will need in order to conduct that step 2 of the selection and evaluation process. And again, just highlighting here that organizations may need to connect with their own IT departments or their third-party vendor that they're working with to complete these requirements. The TTGA submission checklist. This is an important document and includes all of the documents that must be submitted for the application. I want to highlight that when you open the document, there is a number of documents that you will notice that the CISO office will need to assess the organization system. So that is an important document to note all of the documents in addition to the ones I'm highlighting here that will be needed to be included in your submission. So in terms of submission details, there's 2 steps. The first one is to complete an organization profile in TGRIP, or the Toronto Grants, Rebates, and Incentives portal. And there are 5 documents that need to be uploaded to TGRIP. And this is a declaration of compliance with the anti-harassment discrimination legislation, which is signed within the last 12 months. So for organizations that may already have an organization profile, their images may just need to be updated. Articles of incorporation, audited financial statements for the last 3 years, a certificate of insurance, and the WSIB certificate or letter of confirmation. And then, so that's the first step, TGRIP organization profile. And then step 2 is to email all of the documents to hss@toronto.ca with the following subject line you'll see on the screen. This is for the rent bank one, but you can change it for the bridging grant and the EPIC prevention and payment administration category. And this will include the application form, the budget form, the security requirements and security controls assessment form, a signed letter from your board of directors approving the project, and that submission checklist document, all of the documents that are listed in that list as well. I know it's a pretty comprehensive submission with a lot of documents, but we are requesting that each attachment is separate, so do not combine the documents together, and this can be submitted in the zip file format as well. Some key tips when completing the application is information should be clear, concise, and relevant. Be explicit and don't assume that the reviewer has an understanding of the previous work of your organization or agency. Be detailed and clear on the goals of your organization and the outcome of the project. Complete each section to the best of your ability. And if you have any questions during the process, you can contact hss@toronto.ca. and to start the application as early as possible. Because this is a sort of paper-based application submission, just some common mistakes that we see with these submissions. So submission email can be stuck in the outbox of your email. So make sure that the email is actually sent. You will receive a confirmation of receipt of your submission. So if you don't hear from us, please follow up and just make sure that your submission was actually sent. Another common mistake we see is that not all required documents are included in the submission. And this is a really important one because there is quite a bit of documentation to be submitted for this call. So just something to also highlight. And incomplete documents is another common mistake, especially with Excel, which has multiple tabs. So just something to also keep in mind. So some key dates and timelines. So like I said, this presentation is being recorded and will be uploaded to our Housing and Homelessness Grants webpage for those who are unable to attend and watch the information session, or if you need to go back at any point, you have the opportunity to do so. So after listening, if you'd like to apply, you will need to submit a request to hss@toronto.ca to receive an application package. And just some dates. So we will have a Q&A period, but there are multiple opportunities to be able to receive city support and ask additional questions. We're hosting 2 help desk sessions, and the first one is scheduled next week on December 14th, and the second one is scheduled on January 11th, 2023. If you are looking to register, it's on the Housing and Homelessness Grants webpage, and there's the link to sort of register as well. And essentially these help desk sessions are more informal, and there's sort of a drop-in opportunity for organizations to come, pop by, ask your questions, receive the support that staff will be available to answer any questions. And then you can either come for the whole thing, or you can just pop by, answer your question, and feel free to leave as well. So we are having 2 of those. In addition to the help desk sessions, we are asking if you do have any questions that they can be submitted in writing to hss@toronto.ca. And the questions deadline to submit any questions is January 13th. And an addenda with sort of a question and answer document will be released the following week. And the application submission deadline is February 1st, 2023. So I'm going to turn it over to Dawn to close our presentation before we open it up to Q&A.
Thanks, Gurjeet. That was great. That was a whole lot of information for people. I'm sure there's lots of questions. Just want to reiterate that February 1st, 2023 at 11:59 p.m. is the deadline to submit. Please don't. We cannot accept applications after this as well. So please get started on your applications. Really important. There's a number of components and documents that we require. Thanks everyone for going through all of the requirements. And I think what we can do now is perhaps turn it to Patricia, who is going to lead us through the questions. And as panelists, we'll do our best to answer all of your questions and get back to you if we're not able to.